50 pages into this book, I didn't think I wanted to go on 50%, and I was totally into it. At 75%, I thought I knew everything. I knew how this was going to end. 95%, I was totally shocked and so glad that I kept going. Hi guys, it's Ankita. Welcome to another video. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing to my channel to follow me along on my reading journey. In this video, I am going to review The Bleeding by Johana Gustawsson. This is a dark gothic thriller in which we follow three women across three different centuries. In the 21st century, we follow Maxine, who is an inspector in Suerte du Quebec, and she receives a call in 2002 to investigate a murder. When she arrives at the crime scene, she realizes it's her school teacher who has been found at the crime scene, where her school teacher's husband is found murdered with multiple stab wounds, and the teacher refuses to speak. Maxine is really surprised that this has happened to her school teacher, who both the school teacher and her husband, a couple, were known to be really peaceful, loving people, very engaged in the small community. But the most astonishing thing is that while they are going through the house of this school teacher, what's the name of the teacher? Hold on. A school teacher, Mrs. Gowan, refuses to speak a word. But what is surprising and astonishing is when they are going through the crime scene, they come upon 7 severed hands, which are essentially preserved in glass cases, and nobody knows what these hands, like literally preserved hands, are doing in Mrs. Gowan's home. So Maxine has this really difficult challenge to not only find out what those severed hands are doing in the house, but how Mrs. Gowan, this goody two-shoes, is in any way connected to that, or her husband, who's also a professor, I believe, is how he's connected to this and what led to the stabbing, the murder, everything. Then we go back to the 20th century, post-war Quebec, where we follow a girl named Lena who has lost her father in a war. She is being bullied in school. She's having a really hard time, and her mother works at an asylum, and she spends her time after school at the asylum, and she gets really close to this elderly lady, and they start having conversations, and Lena is introduced to some occult practices. And then we jump back another century. In the 19th century, towards the end of the 19th century, we follow Lucienne, who has suffered the loss of her 2 daughters in a fire, but she refuses to acknowledge, or rather she refuses to come to terms to believe that her daughters actually perished in the fire. She believes they are still alive, and she gets caught up in this high society of women who are into all these occult practices of communicating with the dead and all of that stuff. We follow these 3 women and how their lives are interconnected, and how it eventually leads to the murder of a professor. It is very dark. It is really well written, well plotted. What really bothered me though was the translation. I don't think it is the best translation. It took me a really long time to get into the writing. For a book like this, for a thriller, I really prefer plain language that's really smooth, and that will just kind of get me into the plot, into the story, the characters, unless it is meant to be really lyrical language, which obviously this wasn't. But it was really, I think the plot was so strong that I kind of started overlooking the language after a certain point. And I was like, I just want to know why this has happened to the professor. Why was this murder committed? But really, the ending of this shook me. It really surprised me. I did not see it coming. It's a very short read. It's I think 250 pages, around 250 pages, very short read. And I'm pretty sure the language in the original, I believe French, must be much better. So if you know French, I would recommend reading this in French. And if you don't and you want to read translated work, I would still recommend it because the plot is so strong. It's a really cleverly written book. Also, I do love the cover a lot. I got this from the library, so it has the plastic cover. I do like the cover a lot. I do like the sprayed edges. The only issue I had was that the font was a little too small for me, but you know, if you don't mind that, you can listen to the audiobook. So that's my short review of The Bleeding by Johana Gustawsson. I hope I'm saying her last name correctly. Do look up this author. She's received a lot of awards for thriller fiction. Do let me know in the comments down below if you have read this book or any other book by this author, or if you are currently reading a dark thriller or just any really exciting thriller. I would really like to know. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Until then, take care. Bye bye.